I think we're live. Yes, we are live. All right. So, came on a little early today, trying to get ahead of a couple of things because I got stuff to do before the sun sets on me. I got stuff to do. So, I'm trying to do this a little earlier, try to jump into this reading a little bit earlier. So, honestly, so I can get it done. And move on to what's next. I don't want to short y'all. I give y'all the reading that I told you I would. All right. So here we go. Chapter 9. All right. I hope it's on. Looks like it's on. All right, so we going. Chapter 9 of The Art of Passing the Buck. Parenting in perpetual wealth. With more of the basics now understood, it becomes possible to look in greater detail at how important proper parenting is to the success of your trust. Your actions can have almost everything to do with whether your trust becomes a smooth running cash cow or a raging battlefield driving. Let me read that again. All right. Your actions can have almost everything to do with whether your trust becomes a smooth running cash cow or a raging battlefield, driving beneficiaries and your trustees to despair or worse. Until the last few hundred years, average people were too poor to even consider getting a trust for their heirs. Many families today lack experience in this little-known financial area, seeding the future and seeding the future. One is spelled S-E-E-D-I-N-G, seeding the future, and one is spelled C-E-D-I-N-G, seeding the future. Since prospective donors of inheritance, I forgot to do the fan. Hold on. Here we go. All right. And the AI summary says Professor Gus is reading chapter 9 and leading a chocolate discussion. A chocolate discussion. And y'all think this thing is smart? All right. This is funny. All right, where we at? Seeding the future versus seeding the future. Since prospective donors of an inheritance are seldom inheritors themselves, they may not know what it is like to receive a large bequest. Thus, they are less likely to be familiar with emotional, legal, financial, tax aspects when an estate passes to their heirs. The prospective recipients are also in the dark about these issues and bear an extra load of the responsibility to know how to take proper care of willed investments, income property, land, etc. The result can be not only confusion, suspicion, and fear, but also when the actual event comes to pass, the heirs can be quite overwhelmed. The situation is further compounded by our society's phobia about death and dying, resulting in little connection between the intention of a trust creator and the inheritors. Instead of clear, specific instructions regarding who, what, when, where, and why of the bequest, we may find innuendo and hearsay until it's too late and the grantor is dead, is unalive. Sorry, TikTok. It would be far better to know who gets a portion of the rental property and other assets and what that means to the recipient while the grantor is around to question and debate. Sorry. Especially to learn his or her quote unquote tricks of administration and the process of decision making. This is even more true if the grantor has a complex financial portfolio. Young minds meet. It might be a good idea to consider preparing children for their eventual responsibilities. To properly create and perpetuate wealth, though, we suggest people start when children are young by including them in meetings about family finances or discussing investment strategies at the dinner table. People may also want to ensure children have skills in some financial arena, such as bookkeeping, accounting, or investment counseling. Preparing children for eventual wealth management requires them to feel secure. Therefore, we strongly suggest avoiding the not so uncommon mistake of using pending inheritance to manipulate the would-be heirs, or pitting one child against the other for bonuses and benefits passed out at some future date. We also, hold on. Okay, I'm gonna comment on it when I finish. We also find it curious that some may favor males or females in deciding which child is to receive how large a share. Although parents may have favorites, it is best to leave the results of the inheritance to be shared based on merit. The emotional issues associated with inheritance can be harsh and violent, as shown by the sordid stories about those who force a relative into an early grave. The roots of the emotional issues are not in the money gained, but rather from whether the inheritor feels loved or not loved. Parents may shower a child with money and neglect the child's feelings, ignore the child outright, or simply favor another child. Shunned, a child never feels good enough. He or she may turn into the child whose outbursts rip the entire family apart when the will is read to the grieving survivors. In general, children who are secure about themselves in their early years have the potential to be stable members of the family and a huge help in making smooth financial transition when a significant family member dies. Because of this incredible flexibility of administration of trust assets, the solution to many of the inheritance difficulties described here can be achieved through an irrevocable common law trust. Beneficiaries can even be involved in the trust administration process by working for the trust in a clerical or advisory capacity. When the family assets become the family business, there is greater opportunity to open communication channels that are not available to other types of business entities and trust structures. All right, let's go back now. Okay. So in the paragraph, preparing children for eventual wealth management, it says, we strongly suggest avoiding the not so common mistake of using pending inheritance to manipulate would-be heirs. That's the first thing. But earlier, Mr. Charles said it's a good idea to use the inheritance to get the children to do what you want them to do. That's conflicting information. One that's literally opposite of the other. Teenagers. Sometimes, no matter how good the plans, how careful the parenting, the task can become impossible. It is not unusual, for example, for a long, well-behaved child to become rebellious on entering puberty. Teenagers' bodies are positively awash with hormones and all that go with them. We know now, because of the brain chemistry research and the portion of the brain used, the way we think is fundamentally different from the way adults do. The way they think, is fundamentally different from the way adults do. Indeed, the differences are so extraordinary and pronounced that more and more researchers are coming to think of puberty as a temporary form of insanity lasting years. Teenagers' brains are not only processing data differently than adult brains do, but they do it as a much more primitive, visceral part. It is no wonder that teenagers often seem intensely tribal, emotionally volatile, and even alien and alienated, sometimes all at once. This is why it is vital to them that you place boundaries and roles that are properly defined for them. Firm rules laid out with love must also be enforced. There has to be a place of stability, sanity, support, and love for your children while they go through the incredible and even chaotic process of becoming young adults. Even if you cannot or will not provide these needs, your children's friends, gangs, and the predators of every stripe will. By providing proper parenting, though, you teach your children not just facts, figures, and procedures, but a philosophy of life, instilling your values and providing your children with benchmarks to which they can internally refer to as long as they live. Healthy participants. The obvious is not a book on the This is obviously not a book on the psychology of child rearing, but it is nevertheless important that we show how this applies to trust. Emotionally healthy, stable beneficiaries make for smoother transition when you pass. Your well oiled, completely supervised trust remains intact, whereas crippled birds and their bottomless pits of need, ever crying out for attention, can affect your trust at levels ranging from endless irritants to hamstring and trust management. Just as coaches have their playbook and commanders and executives have their standard operation procedures and plans, so do grantors and trustees have their own methods of dealing with problem beneficiaries. Tried and true procedures developed over centuries are readily available. They have been tested in the legal fires of courts high and low, both here and abroad. Some of this knowledge is in volume 2. I told y'all about this volume 2. I'm sick of it. Some of this knowledge is in volume 2, for there are ways to handle problem beneficiaries. So you're not going to tell me what those ways are. You just going to tell me that it's somewhere else and it can be accessed. Red flag. Predictable loveless lives. Predictable loveless lives is the name of the next section. We have heard examples of children who are the beneficiaries of great wealth, and yet their behavior is destructive. Here is an experience written by one of our trustees that takes us through one of those rich kid scenarios, and we now have added information about how to avoid this. Having money has nothing to do with getting out of being a parent as follows. In the right coin. Good beneficiaries are not born. To the contrary, they are reared. While there will always be a few twisted ones out there, we believe that all manner of self-destructive and destructive behavior by those who will become beneficiaries is largely preventable. It requires what the military calls command emphasis, especially in the critical formative years. What follows is a look into what children need, coupled with some true life searing examples of what can happen when their real needs not passing once go unmet. All right, before we jump into this next section about child rearing and all this and all that, okay? I'm already red flagged up, right? Because Mr. Charles, the group of writers here, Mr. Charles, that I call Mr. Charles is saying to us, well, make sure you raise the child right and that all their needs are met. Because if their needs are not met, then they're not going to be good beneficiaries, even if you do start a trust. They already told us that you don't have to be super wealthy to start a trust, right? You can start a trust with just a life insurance policy or something small, right? You don't have to have millions of dollars. But you also have to make sure that the beneficiaries of your trust, right, are cared for properly in a way that when you do pass this wealth onto them or this trust onto them to build wealth, they are stable enough in mind and body to be able to receive this and then pass it on to the next generation, right? Okay. Then earlier they told us poor people can't do this. But you don't need to be rich. But your kids need to be healthy, mentally, physically. So you do need to be well off, right? I mean, is that what y'all getting from this? Okay, maybe not well off, but you need to raise your children in such a way that they're not missing any needs and they're sound of mind. And then you are educating them on the financial principles throughout their lifetime. so that when they get to the end of life, this is just something that they already understand how it goes. Okay, that I can get behind. But if we're looking for them to be well cared for and not have any stressors or nothing like that to be good beneficiaries, then we're kind of saying we already need to be rich. We already need to be in a state where the kids are not wanting for anything. So they're mentally healthy, they're physically healthy. The reason why they're acting up is because they have too much. And then we can do a trust. That's what it sounds like you're saying to me, Mr. Charles, which is conflicting because which one is it? Can I start this from the ground up and build it? Or do I need to have children who are already so good that they don't really need anything? So then when I pass this on to them, they'll be able to embrace it. But if my children are growing up, like I grew up, sometimes we miss meals. Sometimes we was hungry. Like that's what it was. If they grow up like that, they're not good beneficiaries, is what Mr. Charles said. So then rather telling me get volume 2 or get a whole nother new book, I want you to tell me how to get from where I'm at to there, to where I need to be. I need you to teach me the art, Mr. Charles. Tell me some secrets. Don't tell me to get another book, or if you were in a better position, you'd be able to apply this, because then you wasting my time at that point. All right, let's keep going. So they were talking about command emphasis, and they're saying this is a good way to raise your child so they can become good beneficiaries. Command emphasis defined. What is command emphasis? It is the direct, continuing involvement of whomever is responsible for physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual support of the child or children. Hint, not the many. Hint, not the nanny, au pair, or housekeeper. What is significant is that lines of loving communication be built, repairing as needed, repairing as needed and expanding over time. Communication must be bidirectional. Developing this takes time, but it is a wise investment, one which yields vast dividends in all areas as the years march on. Failure to invest properly here usually yields in broken children who become dysfunctional adults ill-suited to life in general, let alone proper stewardship of your legacy. Children need to be stable, loving, disciplined, and their environment needs, I'm sorry, let me say that again. Children need a stable, loving, disciplined environment in which to develop safely and grow, to test themselves, learn about themselves and the world around them. Without this, children become more and more damaged and then act out accordingly in a large subconscious cry for help, designed to force parents or guardians to intervene and pay attention to them. Sadly, this is often the opposite. This often has the opposite effect, causing further alienation and estrangement on both sides. Granted, the high divorce rate and results in single parent families are not helping, but then neither are the intact families whose substance abuse, physical abuse, I can't say that word on TikTok. How y'all say it on TikTok? Smexual abuse? I think that's how they say it. Emotional abuse or abandonment occur. Nevertheless, it is imperative to provide these necessary ingredients for children's healthy development somehow, including proper same SMEX role models. If children do not get their basic needs met, they self-destruct. Based on the writer's direct experience in junior high school, not high school, we share with you an unusual perspective. Okay, again, they're doubling down on this that everything's got to be pretty good. I mean, we know that divorce crushes children. We know that. So they don't. Mr. Charles is saying if you can help it, don't be divorced. Mr. Charles, we got I don't know if you know, sir, but we got like a 65% divorce rate in our country right now. So this is leaving 45% of the people left for this knowledge to be applicable to, right? Um, Granted, high divorce rate and results in single parents are not helping, but then neither are intact families. So intact families where the divorce didn't happen, but then there's all kind of other side stuff going on. Um, and the only reason I'm pointing this out is because this is about in the beginning they said this is about securing wealth for your family, building wealth for your family, and securing your future generations, right? Your legacy. If the first generation you're trying to apply these things to are hungry and therefore not listening to nothing you're talking about, then this ain't gonna work. Because you just told me that they gotta be basically really good, like really good. It's not enough that they just be okay. They gotta be so good that when you present this to them, this just is like, oh, you can do this. They can't be distracted by anything. They can't be distracted by their past. They can't be distracted by divorce. They can't be distracted by emotional pain, trauma of any type. They got to be just good. So they got to be good before we can get good, Mr. Charles. Is that what you're telling me? Red flag. All right, let's keep going. Junior high with the upper crust. Junior high for me in Greenfield, South Carolina came as a shock. It was there that I had my first sustained encounter with the upper class. In this case, the progeny of people who owned, presided over, and had upper management jobs in fabric mills, a key part of the region's economy, or law offices, accounting firms, suppliers, and the like, which supported them. I soon discovered that not only were they far better dressed than I was, firstborn of 6 children of a defense engineer, and wired differently, but they did not operate in familiar ways. The girls, excuse me, excuse me, were always immaculately, ooh, we lost it. Come on, get back. All right, there we go. Um, lost my place. Where was that? Like, okay, there we go. The girls were always immaculately turned out, complete with makeup, carefully styled and cut hair, the latest fashions, and looked like junior versions of the Stepford Wives. This is in middle school? All right. The boys, naturally rougher and more boisterous, nevertheless wore expensive monogram sweaters, slacks, shirts, and penny loafers. The usual acne problems plagued some, and smoking seemed to be alarmingly common, especially among the girls. What was pervasive, though, was an atmosphere of class distinction, elitism, and outright snobbery, with some only mildly that way while others blatantly so. These people ruled the roost, held all the important student positions, and lorded over the other students. There were a few workarounds, noticeably academic excellence, by which you could gain some small status with them. And this, as we will see, ultimately worked to my advantage. An undisciplined lot. I grew up in a sh- I grew up in a sh- I grew up in a strict and by my lights over disciplined home. But the scions of the wealthy, but the scions of the wealthy signally lacked. Hmm? Oh, okay. Sorry, let me read that again, y'all. I grew up in a strict and by my lights, over disciplined home, but the scions of the wealthy signally lacked in discipline to a shocking degree. I told you this. I don't like this editor. I don't, not the author, the editor. I got problems with this editor. Um, The son of a local barbecue magnate was a juvenile delinquent, repeatedly saved by his doting father, with an arrest record as long as my arm, and unfortunately for me, was the former Seattle Golden Gloves boxing champion. He was inches taller than I, long of limb, strong, and a bully. Worse, he had a friend, effectively his twin. All right, I'm gonna leave the editor alone. But what are you doing? What is that? Like that doesn't make sense. All right. I was I was then smallish, pudgy, weak, and uncoordinated. Ring day, when we got our class rings, was sad and painful. On another occasion, I got bounced off. On another occasion, I got bounced off a bunch of built-in combination locks on student lockers by the two, then wound up almost expelled for simply defending myself. Another undisciplined one was small, cut class a lot, smoked, and was flunking several subjects. But was a but was a social but was of such social prominence that his name was in the society pages as having attended the midnight pancake breakfast. It got downright surreal when this kid showed up one day at school, face barely visible over the dashboard of brand new, huge, powerful Oldsmobile Tornado. That doesn't make sense either. He had to sit on a phone book to see it all. Parental largesse gone wild. And for what achievement? It was not uncommon to see yawning kids in class who were prominently featured as guests at the midnight cotillion the preceding night, up until the wee hours, on a school night. Brilliant. Because South Carolina's tricentennial was coming, we had to do a civics class project on our state's history. Everyone save me and my group was from the upper crust. I got a bad feeling about my likely project grade because of this. My civics teacher, Mr. Reed, was an African American and a good wise man, and it was to him I repaired after a disastrous first weekend meeting, which could have easily gotten me killed en route. Why? One of my project partners, a short, chubby boy, gave me a ride in his grandfather's Cadillac. Yes, another too short drive. Yeah, another too short driver in a big, powerful car with only marginal road vision. What followed was terrifying. Even the helpless bystander, while doing 80 over I'm sorry. I gotta read this again. Ever been a helpless bystander while doing 80 over a succession of blind hills? It went so fast, I hit the roof a couple times. There was no seat belts in the back then. The neighborhood in which I eventually arrived was full of mansions. They were vast, sprawling homes and grounds which made my typical middle-class house seem both shabby and tiny by comparison. Once there, we did manage to agree that we would once there, we did manage to agree on what we would build. But it was downhill then, as work was instantly abandoned for the impromptu sock hop. I think I got a glimpse of a parent while there, but would never swear to it. Yeah. Pardon me, oh.
This leads to an important point about the Iran war. Memes are weapons now.
All right, sorry about that. Where we at? Dang. Okay. We were left alone after we arrived. We were left alone after we arrived. A repeat attempt to a week later was equally unproductive, which is why I sought out Mr. Reed a second time. I had to tell him the only person willing to work in my group was me. He told me to forget them, do the project myself, and he'd take care of the rest. Did I ever? First prize was $10 from him. My brother Ed and I tried one idea, swiftly discarded it, and then designed and built an impressive model of Fort Sumter, whose bombardment by the Confederates is considered to be the start of the Civil War. Hands down, it was the best project in my civics class. It won first prize. Even better were the grades. I got an A plus. The privileged do-nothings in my original group all got an F and richly deserved it. Were they ever shocked? I learned an important lesson from that experience and carry it with me to this day. These days, though, I feel sorry for those kids. It is now clear to me that they were high-end latchkey children, children whose parents were so immersed in their careers themselves and high-profile socializing, they effectively abandoned their offspring. To appease their own guilt, they threw money at their kids instead of providing love, discipline, and stability their kids so obviously both needed and craved. The results confronted me every day that I was in school. A condition alleviated only when I went to a new high school. Southside in my area, and they left. Come on with the comments. That is a period. The results confronted me every day I was in that school. A condition alleviated only when I went to a new school, Southside. In my area, they left to attend Greenville High. I have not followed their careers, but behaviorally speaking, the handwriting was already on the wall, and it was bleak. The list was long. Smoking was common, but some were already into marijuana. Can you say that on TikTok? I don't even know. I gather a lot of drinking was going on too, but I never saw it in school. A notable amount of sexual activity occurred, judging from the events I heard and saw, plus some incredibly provocative and revealing outfits certain girls wore to class and frankly flaunted themselves in. These are junior high girls, recall, running around daily in full makeup. Many of these kids had cars or plainly unsupervised access to one. As noted, there were severe safety issues involved. Many of these kids socialized at night, skipped classes, and were not focused even when in class. Work ethics were marked by their absence, though there were some who somehow managed to be social gadabouts and good students. There were several budding career criminals, a path fostered by parents unable or unwilling to provide a firm hand and to a steady course of control. What? I'm sorry, I read that wrong. There were several budding career criminals, a path fostered by parents unable or unwilling to provide a firm hand and a steady course to their out of control progeny. Summing up, which would you rather have as beneficiaries? The sad, undisciplined wastrels described immediately above, kids who knew the price of everything and the value of nothing, or beneficiaries who grew up in a loving, stable, supportive, properly disciplined environment? Do you want beneficiaries with faux self-esteem via sycophancy and manufactured achievement, or rather beneficiaries with real self-esteem gained by doing something, by striving for the mark, and either falling short and trying again or hitting it by dint of hard work, belief in self, and sheer dogged persistence? That was a question, by the way. These comments go crazy in this book. Um, do you want your legacy in the hands of people who have solid characters or layabouts who are characters? Whom would you entrust such weighty responsibilities? Well, I'm sorry. Whom would you entrust with such weighty responsibilities while you were still around? Before deciding, consider that many top leaders started at the bottom, working in the mailroom and the like before reaching the heights. Consider also that many who have made it failed as many as six times running before hitting it big. Finally, it may be well to take a look at, I don't know how to pronounce this. I don't speak German. All right, it's a German word, and I think it says Bundeswehr. but I'm not German, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. So let me read that again. Finally, it might be well to take a look at the Bundeswehr, the federal German army. Officer cadets in the Bundeswehr go through an accelerated period starting as privates, spend time as non-commissioned officers, and only then, if they work out, become officers. This gives them the much needed perspective on how the other half lives and needs and problems of soldiers they will one day command and potentially commit to combat. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. We recommend that you pay your children the right coin, the coin of love, if you want to be healthy, sane, functional. If you want healthy, sane, functional beneficiaries to carry on after your departure from this world. Properly nurtured and supported people do not need to create drama to get attention, whether from their parents or others, nor do they need to destroy the lives of others, being whole persons themselves. All right, that was chapter 9. Let's go back. Let's go back. Okay. Parenting and perpetual wealth. That's the name of the start of this chapter. So in this chapter, they're telling us that the idea behind the trust is to safeguard your legacy, right? To pass something on, to build something that's not for yourself, but for those that come after you. And they're saying that we can do that. Well, actually, they say that they're gonna show us that the art, right? And tell us some secrets, right? Okay. But so far, 9 chapters in, so far, and this is my opinion of the reading, what I'm getting is contradictory messages. You need the children, the beneficiaries, to be stable. And you're listing things that rich kids do that make them unstable. But we've seen those unstable little teenagers become leaders of industry. In my lifetime, I'm old. I'm old, y'all. I've lived long enough to see somebody become a president who only received what they called a gentleman's C. That means because of who his family was, they just passed him. Interesting enough, I never thought about this, but interestingly enough, the person during their tenure in the position, under their tenure, I should say, in the position, introduced something called No Child Left Behind, which effectively just pushed children forward, regardless if they knew the information. So, Mr. Charles, you want me to believe that those who have the wealth and have these terrible children that shouldn't really be beneficiaries, but are, those children rise to position of power and influence with all of the trauma, with being neglected. Now, this is not a good thing because once they get into those positions of power, they do very weird things that affect all the rest of us. So it's not a good thing. But I'm just saying, they they're there. It's not like those things that you just listed, not getting hugs and not getting real love and all that. It don't stop the show. It don't stop the show. They still become the president. They still pass laws that harm hundreds of thousands of children because those children are not trust babies. When you push them through the system, they come out on the other side not knowing anything. And there is no trust fund for them. But that's the world we live in from those people. I'm just trying to follow the logic here of the writers in this book. Because what they're saying is you don't have to be one of those people, right? To build your legacy. You don't have to be one of those people. But Sir Charles, Mr. Charles, those people are doing exactly what they want to do. I'm not even going to mention the other, y'all already know, you know. We ain't going to mention what they, we're not even going to mention that. But that's something that they're doing on a very large, organized scale. The trust fund baby. So telling me that, one of your friends drove in a car with them when they was a kid and it was scary. I don't know that. What do y'all think? Y'all think this is holding weight? Do y'all think this information is presenting us with something that's, man, this is actionable intelligence. We're about to go put this to use right now. What you think? Telling me that I need to make sure that my child is raised properly. You don't tell me that I'm going to do that as a parent. I'm going to do my best. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be nowhere near perfect, but I'm going to do my best that I can do to raise my child, right? I don't know if that prepares them for a trust, to be beneficiaries for a trust based on ideal situation. Because like I said, I know people. I know the person was literally the president. There's another person right now who is a billionaire, and that person came from a person who was, mm, let's just say, they were doing business in another country, and they were doing business as usual. Their business harmed people. The son is now a leader, a captain of an industry that people look up to. He inherited from his father position, power, placement in order to be able to be who he is today. So I don't know. I don't know, Mr. Charles. You saying that these children, are going to be future criminals. And I think even if they were to be future criminals, they wouldn't be affected by their criminality. They might be even encouraged to do more criminal things because of the fact that they're untouchable. So what are we saying, Mr. Charles? And all that, did you get any art yet? Did you learn any secrets yet? Any secrets here? Critique what you read. When you are reading, you are allowing the idea that someone else possesses or promotes to enter into you. So when you're reading, critique what you're reading. Read it, put it out there, separate from you. Read it, check around it, check the sources behind it. You know what I'm saying? And again, if it ain't actionable, if it's not something you can actually use, throw it out. Now I'm critiquing Mr. Charles here pretty heavily, and that doesn't mean that there's nothing good. Critique doesn't mean that. Critique is, for me, if I'm a farmer and you give me a book and say it's the best farming book ever, I'm gonna say, cool, I'm a farmer. Let me see what kind of tips and tricks I can learn from this book. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for better ways to farm. So if the book is just filled with stories about farmers, but not actual actionable intelligence that I can use to become a better farmer. All right, y'all, that's chapter 9. And that is a wrap. Any questions? I don't see any questions in here. Let me see. When I got off yesterday, it said I had a lot of viewers, but I don't see them here. And I don't know if that's because I don't know where to look or what. But, I don't see anything coming up. I don't see no questions coming up. Um, so yeah, if there's no questions, That was chapter 9. We will be back Monday, 6, and we will read chapter 10. And we are about 100 pages in. It's only a 300-page book. So this will be easy. We'll get to this. We will see, excuse me, if this has any merit for our lives, for something that we can, try to do. All of us want to, I think, have a good legacy to pass on to our children. But again, if it's not something that you can actually use, you can actually put to use, it's not helping you. And it may help somebody else. It may be that what's here is good for some people and not for others. That's fine too. Everybody doesn't need the same or want the same things. That's fine. But this is what you do when you're reading, y'all. Critique what you're reading. All right. See y'all Monday. Okay. Then this one.